Hello DMs, welcome back to Master of Dungeons. In this video I'll discuss Chapter 2 of Call The Netherdeep, which is the journey from Jigal to Bazzoxan. It has your PCs travelling and having some interesting random encounters along the way. The chapter opens with one of the elders from Jigal coming to the players and to talk to them about what happened in the previous chapter, about Elixion and the Jewel of Three Prayers. Now, if your players are being cagey and not wanting to share information like my party was, I had the elder tell them to hand over the jewel and he would give it to heroes worthy of this mission, implying the rivals would take it. My party were greedy enough that they were saying, to hell with that, fine, we'll go on the mission. If your players are playing the heroic types, it'll be easier, but of course this is the big challenge of running a module, when to railroad and when to not. Really, the only answer is to be honest with your players and make it clear that if they don't go on the mission, then that's the end of Call The Netherdeep, and it's pretty vital to the story. If you want, you can have the rivals steal the jewel and have them run off with it, keeping the players at a distance, and this is one of the suggestions from the book. But I have a much better suggestion to steal it later on, and I think it worked really well in my campaign. Once on the road, the players have a choice of travel paces, be it fast, normal or slow, giving you less encounters on a fast pace and more encounters on a slow. The only real reason they'd have a fast pace is to catch up with the rivals, and I doubt they'd want a slow pace, so don't even suggest it, just give them the normal pace option. And if the rivals steal the jewel, of course, you can give them the fast pace choice. Once on the road, there are a choice of 8 random encounter chances, and at normal pace you have 10 encounters, a stop after the first 6. Out of 8 of the encounters, 4 are unique, so won't repeat if you roll them a second time, and I highly recommend using these. A lucky break is less important if the rivals aren't ahead of your players, but Gloomstalkers are a fun monster to run, so worth using if you want an interesting combat. I'll put a link to a video I did on running them in an encounter. The Crashed Wagon, Demonic Carrion and Moorbound Mayhem are all really fun to run, and I definitely have you choose the Moorbound Mayhem before the players get to the Emerald Loot Caravan. With my players, they travelled with the rivals. This gave some excellent roleplay opportunities for my players and for the rivals, and for them to learn about each other. Also, it gave me something that my players didn't know, but Maggie, Irvin and Galceride are 3 very tactically savvy characters who would use these skills to learn about the players and save them for later, so could learn your players' strengths and weaknesses. So if they did get into a fight later on, they would use that knowledge. It later meant that when a combat happened, they knew who best to target and what skills or spells the party had. This is also probably the time the rivals will most likely become hostile or friendly if they're interacting on the road. In my case, what happened was Galal Sarayad, who hates being lied to, was lied to by my players and so became hostile towards the party. Dermot, who wants to be everyone's friend, became a friend to one of my party, and the rest were indifferent and stayed that way until Chapter 3. The Emerald Loop is a really odd thing in this whole book. It literally has no connection to anything. There's several interesting NPCs but it has no connection to anything else, nor does it have any bearing later on. The most interesting thing here are the Berserkers, Tyvak and Magra, who they have ties to Irvin, and he's my personal favourite of the rivals. He's not the best in combat, but his story is certainly the most interesting. Also, if you gave your players the Moorbound Mayhem encounter, it means they will get given a really nice magic item as a thank you, which is why I recommended having them do at least that one encounter. After the Emerald Loop, you do another 4 encounters on a normal pace, and if you've watched Critical Role and seen the Bad Luck Bandits, then I recommend running the Roadside Raiders encounter just for a nice fun interaction with these NPCs before they arrive into Bazzoxan and things get really serious. And that's it. The chapter ends with your players levelling up from 4 to 5. As I said in my previous video, this chapter is really short and can be done in one session. If you're running it on Roll20, finding some maps for combat encounters in your prep is a wise idea, but otherwise not a lot needed from you as a DM, except some role-playing. In my video on the Tier 1 stat blocks of the rivals, I have suggestions for running them in combat, potentially on the road, so I suggest you check that out too. But thanks for watching, and next video I'll talk about Bazzoxan, which is another 2 to 3 part chapter, and my personal favourite in the book. Anyway, this has been Chapter 2 from Call The Netherdeep. Till next time, happy hunting.